off and I wanted to go back. Ted, I'm sorry I didn't hit your presentation, but I've had frustrations with my computer at the parks office, so I drove speedily out here to the NRD so I could join. And I don't know if you wanted me to uh, go into anything from your presentation, Ted, or not. But Dan, and the question on the saltwort, I believe Shirk did a study back in the 1920s on saltwort, and I believe in there he said that the seed bank was at least for the saltwort he had documented 10 years. So I don't know, you know, I think that's one thing I've really kind of been disappointed with the partnership, as no one from the university has really taken it on to do a vegetative study for a master's thesis or a doctorate candidate to look at the plant communities a little bit more in the saline wetlands. Second thing I'd like to do is I think I'd really like to thank Sarah, Melissa, and Sean and your coworkers for putting this on. I know the logistics had to be just tremendous to get everything together. So I really appreciate that, and that we're able to reach out to a broader community, and for all of you taking the time to do this. I will let you know I was 97.4 degrees this morning when I came in, so I am a pretty cool guy. And I've been that temperature about for the last 6 months or so. So I'm going to get into my presentation. It's a little bit different. It's probably the most boring one of the bunch. I think they were all well done. Um, Originally I started out as a coordinator of the partnership. I still am, but I was a full time. Now I'm a 60-40 guy, so I spend 60% of my time on the saline wetlands, 40% of my time on the other greenways in Lancaster County and the city of Lincoln. Um, so I'm just going to briefly go over what we've done recently. The partnership has gotten a NACA grant in cooperation with Ducks Unlimited and partnership with the Sandhills Task Force. So we have recently got that. That was for about a $500,000. We did complete the success of the salt marsh, which was done by Michael Forsberg. It's an update of last of the least. So I'd encourage everyone to look at that if you haven't. We have a research project that's just beginning with Dr. Tang of UNL, and he's doing two sites of each City of Lincoln properties, NRD properties, and Game Parks Commission properties. And Dr. Tang will be doing a lot of salinity measures and moisture measures in the saline wetlands. Pheasants Forever is a partner with us. And about a year ago or a year and a half ago, we purchased some properties up in Jackson, about 160 acres. And we're currently in negotiation for another piece. Dan kind of alluded to the PL 566 grant. This has could have great ramifications for the saline wetlands and other habitats that are in the watersheds around Lincoln. We were able to face the COVID thing this year with seasonal employees. I think we have a big shout out goes to the NRD for that. We hired 6 seasonal employees. It was very difficult, the logistics. They each drove their own cars to the sites for a while. So we maintained our management at a good level like we have in the past. Restoration designs completed. We completed a restoration design on Frank Shoemaker Marsh, which is for expansion of endangered species habitat. And we also recently completed one on the Haynes Branch, which is in South Pioneers Park. And that one kind of drains some categorized Category 3 saline wetlands, and Haynes Branch is also critical habitat for the beetle. Both of those have the 404 permits have been submitted on those particular projects. We have been able to get funding for the Haynes Branch project, but not for the Shoemaker Marsh project. John Denton with Ducks Unlimited. Thankfully, they submitted a grant to NET this year for that particular project. So hopefully next winter we'll be able to do some expansion on the Frank Shoemaker Marsh restoration. And a little bit of sarcasm, we were successful in our 2020 NET grant to develop ethanol pumps in the state of Nebraska. So we're real appreciative of that. Conservation plan. Let's go into what I'm going to talk about is the implementation plan of the partnership. and we updated that in 2018. Um, and we basically broke it up into two categories: partnership management and natural resources management. So we utilize that particular tool when we in the partnership when we go through things. Today I'm going to kind of hit on planning and coordination, conservation planning, funding a little bit, and then of course we have the wetland stream protection, and then more so on the wetland buffer management and development and the research in private lands. We're a little bit unique here with the Nebraska's Eastern Saline wetlands because they're located around a large population center. City of Lincoln is about 300,000 people. I think, I've thought about this a lot, but we have to plan bigger. We've got to conserve and sustain the natural resource functions that we have, not only here, but elsewhere. Instead of just looking at a small saline wetland site with maybe 50 acres of saline wetlands, we have to look at beyond up to the edges and beyond the edges when we start planning ahead for the future. And that's one thing I've really appreciated with the members of the partnership is that they are very good at looking towards the future. We don't look at today, we don't look current. We have been a very, even our restoration plans, we have designed some of those as much as we can for what we feel could be future development to the west or the east, and how we can keep the drainage and some of the other effects off of those particular sites. So we have to look ahead when we're dealing with a large population and a large metropolitan area. The city of Lincoln has done, Dan kind of alluded to this, the Little Salt Creek watershed master plan, but the city of Lincoln has actually done 14 basins probably over the last 20 years. And those basins look at a very large area compared to what we're kind of used to in conservation in Nebraska, other than some of the larger areas out west. But so we're, there's many habitats that exist within those basin studies. And I'm going to talk just a little bit more. Dan did a good job on the Little Salt Creek plan. That was done in 2009. Seems like it was just yesterday. I can't believe it was over 10 years ago. But that particular plan, Dan had that map, that illustration of the site. That's actually, that's almost 46 square miles. And it's 14 miles long, 5.5 miles wide. Those are the types of things that we need to start concentrating on the bigger picture. So, on that particular plan, I mean, it's more for flooding and water quality, but they did a fairly good job of starting to incorporate, some of the partners in that plan to voice our opinions and some of our input into that. Ed Harvey, who was with UNL at the time, had a great amount of input into that. He's been doing a lot of hydrology studies funded through Section 6 grant due to the Salt Creek tiger beetle. So, a lot of that was included in the plan. One of the things that plan does identify, it identifies what additional needs need to be done when we continue. And so that's when we started the Upper Little Salt Creek Watershed Master Plan, because it actually said that we needed to concentrate on Salt Creek tiger beetle habitat and measure parameters that are narrowly focused on this organism and that complement it as we go on to ongoing work. So we need to look a little bit bigger, what's the water quality that's going into that particular habitat, et cetera. The Upper Little Salt Creek Saline Wetlands Plan, then we began that in 2015 as a feed off of that plan. This particular plan, which is the Upper Little Salt Creek Saline Wetlands, I think there's like 9 sites on there, maybe not 9, 6 sites. And those sites consist of 950 acres of public land. But the entire project area was estimated at about 12,000 acres. So you can see that we're looking, much broader than, we're looking at private lands. What can we do? What are some of the best management practices that maybe we can initialize through the NRD or NRCS, other agencies on those private lands that will benefit the habitat that we're trying to conserve. So that study was completed, I guess it was completed in December of 15, and it started probably 13. But then recently, we had to kind of absorb things, look at funding, how we can go beyond. And the nice thing about the plan is the partnership asked for priorities. So we had three priority levels, and generally the first ones dealt more with the individual saline wetlands on the landscape. The second one dealt with more with private lands, and the third one dealt more with kind of the vegetative things that we feel our land managers can continue to do, and they've done an excellent job. So those are ongoing more, the priority three ones. Well, so it took us a while. We got some funding through the Environmental Trust Grant in 16, and then we hired a firm, and that firm did what we started to do more design. We met with them several times. We just recently had a final meeting, which we kind of went over all the comments that everybody had on it. So we're starting to wrap that up, and then hopefully we can go beyond that study and work on the implementation. And that may become part of the 566 grant that the NRD has gotten. But the estimated cost for that for those improvements was right around $3 million. So it's a lot of money to try to, to put together, to piece together. And that's why we need partners, and we need to concentrate on additional funding. Let's see, so that's the funding. Okay, that's kind of the opportunities, things that we have. I mean, we have those studies like that to continue on. We don't have a lot of big projects. We were concentrating on that particular area right now. I'm going to talk a little bit about barriers, and this will be a little bit different, but it's things that we have to deal with. And I think we need to start looking a little more forward thinking on some of this. Is that the city of Lincoln they're just now updating their plan forward, they call it. It's a 2050 comprehensive plan. The city has done an excellent job of identifying, environmental resources in their previous plans. I mean, they go back to the 70s, and I would commend the city for doing that. Not a lot of communities. I used to write comprehensive plans years ago, and it was always just a small section in the comprehensive plan. But the city of Lincoln, I think, is fairly cognizant of keeping greenways and looking at the value of those to the population and the people that live there, and how it can attract new businesses economically, et cetera. But we need to be cognizant of preserving those areas in the right way. And I think the plan is starting to address that. But I'll just give you a few things. I mean, they're estimating the population of Lincoln by 2050, the next 3 years, to increase by about 108,000 people. That's a lot of people. Put the metropolitan area at around 400,000. Lancaster County population, including the city of Lincoln, we're looking at about 440,000 people. So we're looking at about 450,000 people in the city of Lincoln by 2050. And from my experience, we always throw those numbers out, but you know what happens? They're a lot higher than that by the time we get there. So, Lincoln's a good place to live, and you have a lot of people that are attracted to this particular city. Households, I mean, that's where we live. Those take space, development space. You're looking at an increase of nearly 50,000 households in the next 30 years. 53,000 when you include the county. So that includes acreage development, that includes multi-family, that includes single family homes, that also includes commercial space. So you're looking at a lot of development on the edges of the city that can occur. And these wetlands are located within close proximity. And not only these wetlands, but you have other freshwater wetlands, you have Wilderness Park, you have the Stevens Creek drainage. So there's a lot of different areas. You have the Prairie Corridor, you have 9 Mile Prairie, you have a lot of different areas that we have to really be aware of as we develop. And an interesting fact that I always look at, since I'm getting older, is the population of age 65 and over is increasing pretty. It goes up to almost 17 to 18% of the total population in 2050. So you look at 1 of 5 people they estimate will be older. So we have to realize that when we do these places, that we that we design them not only for young people or college students or middle-aged students, but also we have to get access for these places for the older persons to enjoy. In that comprehensive plan, the city identifies 11 growth areas. Those growth areas encompass 27.3 square miles. So the city of Lincoln will expand by almost 30 square miles in 30 years, of which those, about half of them are developable. The other half are streets, maybe repairing corridors, those types of things, that lakes or something that would, water bodies that maybe would be involved. So just to put that in perspective, you're looking at 30 square miles. The city of Kearney is about 14 square miles. So double that, and that's in size. That's how much land area would be needed around the city of Lincoln for the next 30 years. You can take it to Norfolk, which is about 10 square miles. So take 3 Norfolks and put it around the city of Lincoln. Scotts Bluff, can't forget our folks out west. That's 6 square miles. So take that times 5, and that's how much more land. And then, of course, for Scott and Cassidy, Wayne, it's about 2 square miles. So you figure about 15 Waynes that would be surrounding the city of Lincoln. So that's what you're looking at. Those are the types of things that we really need to concentrate on and start looking at. And not only that, but requesting to be involved in that process and with those individuals to make some of those decisions that are beneficial to natural resources.
3 minutes, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm just about done, so I did a pretty good job. But I think, as we convert farmland to the urban uses, we have to be cognizant of that also. And we need to look at the environmental aspect. And I think if I can finish, I'm just going to finish now with one issue or 2 words. It's think big. We need to think a lot bigger than what we're doing right now. We need to look at, these watersheds and the entire watersheds and all of the habitats that are in them. And we need to look at how they interact with one another better. And I think the partnership is starting to do that more. And I would encourage everyone else to do that and just look at the bigger picture than maybe what we're doing. So that's all I have today. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm sorry I haven't been able to join more of these talks this week, but been pretty stretched out, and I think that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Let me go ahead.